the truth is that I'd like to thank the Honourable Lady for her standard charm. The truth is, this government isn't doing anything to bring down inflation. This government is stoking inflation. First, we had above-inflation pay rises for the unions. Then, we had a budget which the OBR said would increase inflation. First, we had above-inflation pay rises for the unions. Then, we had a budget which the OBR said was going to push up inflation.
An unexpected turn of events has struck the Labour Party, plunging it into chaos and confusion. One of the parliamentarians, seemingly dedicated to the cause, launched a furious attack on Keir Starmer, questioning his approach to solving vital issues. What was supposed to be a united front suddenly turned into an arena of open conflict, exposing deep internal divisions to the public. There is tension in the air, and an alarming question arises. Is Starmer's leadership crumbling right before our eyes? How will this conflict affect the future of the Labour Party? This is not just speculation. We have shocking video evidence. In these shots, you will see how Starmer's authority in Parliament is being questioned, and it is really impressive.
This morning, we had city economists, real economists, Mr. Speaker, saying that next year inflation would hit 3%. Does the Right Honourable Lady agree that this government's decisions mean higher inflation for working people?
Mr. Speaker, I'll ask the honourable gentleman, 11.1% or 3%?
However, the problem is not only the discontent of one parliamentarian, it is an alarming signal that a real crisis is brewing in the Labour Party. Are you interested in how events will develop? Keir Starmer's leadership is rapidly crumbling, and this is happening before our eyes. What began as a promising new direction quickly turned into a series of contradictions that undermined public trust and caused internal unrest. At the heart of this crisis of trust is the shocking information that Starmer received clothes worth a whopping £332,000 from Lord Ely, the leader of the Labour Party. This generous gift raises serious questions about transparency and ethical standards within the party. This is not just an accident. It is a clear departure from Starmer's initial promises of honesty and a stark contrast to his commitment to find a new way forward. The discrepancy between his words and actions has become obvious, and MPs from his own party cannot ignore it.
Good evening, Vanessa. Yes, it really is shocking news, isn't it?
She doesn't mince her words, does she? Blimey.
She really doesn't. It is absolutely a searing resignation letter from Rosie Duffield. So she's the MP for Canterbury, previously of the Labour Party. Now she says that she's going to sit as an independent, and it's less than 100 days since the party won the election. I cannot remember an MP quitting just a few weeks after they have won such a huge majority in the House of Commons. She's accusing Keir Starmer today of sleaze, of nepotism, saying they are off the scale. In this searing resignation letter published just a few minutes ago, she's hit out at the Prime Minister for accepting hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of freebies at the same time as cutting winter fuel. It really is quite damning.
Rosie Duffield bitterly accused Keir Starmer of bias and greed in a sharp resignation statement, and her words sound like a bolt from the blue for the Labour Party. She openly expressed shame for his actions and those of his inner circle, which caused irreparable damage and humiliated the party. Public criticism is just the tip of the iceberg, because discontent is growing behind closed doors, like a storm about to break out. MPs are beginning to lose faith in Starmer's leadership style, his political decisions, and his ability to connect with voters. The party that was once supposed to unite under his leadership is now splitting into factions, and loyalties are changing like sand through your fingers. The public image of the Labour Party has been dealt a crushing blow, and many voters who had high hopes for it are now deeply disappointed. The party that promised to restore confidence in politics is now perceived as the embodiment of political hypocrisy. Recent opinion polls paint a bleak picture for Starmer and the Labour Party. Public support is falling rapidly, and many voters openly express dissatisfaction with the party's cause. Political analysts warn that these internal disagreements could seriously undermine the party's chances in the elections. Labour is desperately trying to regain the trust of its base while simultaneously seeking to attract a wider electorate. And as if this crisis of confidence wasn't enough, Labour is now embroiled in a fierce debate over economic policy. Starmer's economic vision is facing serious problems within the party, opening a new front in this internal conflict, and the situation is becoming increasingly tense.
Do you think he has a problem with women?
I'm afraid I do, yes. I mean, I've experienced it myself, but most backbenchers that I'm friends with are women, and most of us refer to the men that surround him, the young men, as the lads, and it's very clear that the lads are in charge. They've now got their Downing Street passes. They're the same lads that were there briefing against me in the papers and other prominent female MPs. And, I was really hoping for better, but it wasn't to be.
Now the question is, will Starmer be able to handle this tumultuous situation? Or will his leadership continue to rapidly fall apart? Imagine the leader of the Labour Party who disappoints everyone by expecting drastic cuts in government spending. This is not just an unexpected turnaround, it is a real shock to many. And this is exactly the approach Starmer proposes in his security policy. As Labour struggles to cope with this unexpected and alarming course, we wonder, does this mean the end of the traditional Labour economy, or is it a necessary evolution? His vision, focused on security and economic growth, stands in stark contrast to the party's traditional focus on government spending and social support. Starmer frankly warned that those hoping for increased spending from the Labour government would be sorely disappointed. This bold move was a blow to many loyal supporters of the party who felt betrayed and abandoned. The debate on government spending and taxation has turned into an arena of fierce internal strife, and Starmer's remarks on competitive taxes have only added fuel to the fire. Starmer's policies aimed at economic growth and security have been sharply criticised as contrary to the core values of the Labour Party. Critics have alarmingly warned that such policies could alienate key voters who expect social justice and reliable public services. The situation is heating up to the limit, and the future of the party hangs in the balance. How much longer will the Labour Party be able to weather this storm?
We've already talked about Ukraine, Mr. Speaker. It was Ukraine and COVID that drove up inflation. This government is doing it to the British people. High tax, high inflation, low growth, low reform. There's a word for that, Mr. Speaker. It's Starmerism. Yesterday, like many honourable members on this side of the House, I spoke to farmers from across the United Kingdom. Some of them families who farmed their land for centuries, elderly men in tears, children worried about their parents, all of them worried that their way of life is about to be destroyed. What would the Right Honourable Lady like to say to them?
Many Labour MPs have vehemently opposed Starmer's economic position, expressing deep concern that it is too far from the party's roots. They fear that focusing solely on economic growth, ignoring the redistribution of wealth and government spending, could turn into a disaster for the party in the upcoming elections. The resignation of Rosie Duffield and her harsh criticism only added fuel to the fire. Her accusations of bias and greed have exposed deep cracks within the party, tensions which have reached a critical point. What will the final showdown in Parliament look like?
Let's look at the facts. A typical mid-sized 360-acre family farm in the constituency of my right honourable friend for Thirsk and Moulton. They've spoken to their accountant. Their new liability because of this government is £500,000. That's 12 years' worth of profit. When this generation passes away, that farm will become totally unviable, and it's just one of thousands and thousands of similar farms. It's clear the government hasn't got its facts right. The Central Association for Agricultural Valuers, the real experts in this field, say so. The NFU says so. They're shortly to publish a report showing that 75% of all commercial farms will fall above the...
As the debate continues, the future of the Labour Party hangs in the balance like never before. Starmer's leadership is balancing on a thin rope, as disagreements over donor donations, accusations of deception and inappropriate economic policies have seriously undermined his authority. The security policy has alienated the party's traditional supporters, creating internal divisions that show no signs of resolution. In the face of growing discontent and weakening public support, Starmer faces an uphill struggle to unite the party and restore the trust of voters. The future of the Labour Party is now at a crossroads. Will Starmer's vision of a modern Labour Party prevail, or will the party return to its traditional values? The answer to this question may determine the fate of British politics for many years to come.
If the government isn't going to reverse this terrible policy, will the Right Honourable Lady at least commit that there will be no further increases to inheritance tax and no further reductions to agricultural property relief or business property relief in this Parliament?
Well, Mr. Speaker, he talks about the facts, and I absolutely stand by the figures the government has set out. And the vast majority of estate owners will be totally unaffected. He wants to talk about the figures, Mr. Speaker. I will be crystal clear. The vast majority of estate owners will see no change and pay no tax on land passed on valued at £1 million. Couples can pass on £3 million, Mr. Speaker, tax-free, and those above the thresholds will pay only half the normal rate and can pay over 10 years interest-free.
In a separate event, the Labour Party acknowledged a serious mistake that could cause irreparable damage to British culture. Labour MPs have alarmingly warned that pub culture and national identity could be threatened by a new bill currently being debated in Parliament. This bill, aimed at revising alcohol measures, could give future governments the right to limit the amount of drink consumed under the pretext of regulation. The concern is that the legislation could lead to the replacement of large beer mugs with smaller ones, which will cause a storm of discontent among MPs and pub lovers, calling for additional protection of traditional beer mugs. What is your opinion about this video? Share your thoughts in the comments.